You're listening to the Choreographed Critics Wrestling Podcast. This is episode 3, and today we will be chronicling WrestleMania 17. Welcome to the show, everybody. I'm John, and joined me as always is Joel.
Hey, hello. How's it going, John?
Going good. How are you doing? What's his name from It's Always Sunny?
I'm
You
doing
just
well. I'm doing well.
you reminded me of Dennis there for some reason.
Well, I don't know. The different personalities from all the television I've watched come out from time to time.
Gotcha. Do you wanna
Okay.
do you wanna shift a
Yeah,
little bit to your left? Sorry, the
sure.
camera's
No,
a little off center for our
sure.
graphic.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, here.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, so we're chronicling WrestleMania 17 this episode, and we're going to take people way back to 2001.
Yeah, 2001, before we were allowed to watch, before we were allowed to ask our parents to blow up the cable bill or whatever you said. I think it was
That's right.
episode 1, just double the cable bill
That's
to
right.
watch one of these things.
Yeah, I just want a pay-per-view. Well, that costs as much as our monthly bill.
Yeah, so
It was close.
a lot of stuff from this was just, secondhand um, over the years. So it was really fun going back and watching it. I think I watched it one other time, like 5 years ago or something, when I was like, oh, Peacock, it's got everything. So,
Yeah. Oh my gosh, the whole catalog at your disposal. Um, this is a good time, right? But yeah, 2001, man. They were in Houston, Texas. They were at the Astrodome, I believe. And it was a big deal, right? A lot of people consider this to be like the height of the Attitude Era, as
definitely.
far as WrestleManias go or are concerned. Do you have any other fun facts for us about WrestleMania 17 as far as
Um,
like the draw?
I don't have too much to add, but I can like kind of paint the picture of how the show started. Um, so
Go for it.
they started the show with like this old school video package where it was just showing these classic WrestleMania clips, these classic calls. You hear "Welcome to WrestleMania" and your Gorilla Monsoon. You hear Jesse. Just all these different iconic voices, and it's being watched in the perspective of, I guess you could say, common folk. There's like a
Okay.
guy. There's a guy sitting in his truck watching. There's like this couple laying in the back seat of a station wagon. There's like a guy hanging out by a garbage can, like cooking something, like just
Like a
watching it.
tiny TV.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this tiny
Yeah.
like C battery TVs, like they're able to get a pay per view on that somehow. Um,
Hey, satellite. It was in its infancy, but it was powerful. It was powerful. And you had Limp Bizkit
oh
kind of
yeah,
as the theme music. I mean, that tells you a lot right there where we were culturally.
oh yeah,
The Rock and Stone Cold, poster boys for the company. Um, but there's a lot on this card, isn't there? When you go back to it, you kind of forget about a lot of stuff that happened before the TLC match. I feel like when you think about WrestleMania 17, you think The Rock, Stone Cold. You may remember Triple H and The Undertaker, and then the TLC match.
right,
Those three matches really, really stick with you because they're superb. But I found myself very entertained by Benoit versus Angle.
oh yeah,
Um, we'll get there. But yeah, that match was phenomenal in hindsight. I
yeah.
forgot about it.
And people,
Yeah,
I think, generally like the McMahon feud too, right?
that's right. Hmm. I
So,
glaze over it now because it has a bad taste in my mouth with context
mm,
today. But at the time, we'll get to that match. But, you know, say what you want about Vince McMahon, but where he took wrestling as a brand and a product, he was a visionary. Some of the storytelling was gutsy, edgy, and groundbreaking. People think Paul Heyman, right? And Paul Heyman's a commentator
Right.
on there with Jim Ross on WrestleMania 17. That's an odd feeling, but yeah, people go, "Oh, Paul Heyman. He is the one who broke down all the rules. He made things hardcore." But as far as storytelling goes, I don't think Paul Heyman brushed shoulders with so many culturally crude things. He used a lot of cliches to tell his stories, where Vince McMahon pushed boundaries on purpose because of the Monday Night Wars.
Yeah. No, that's a good point because yeah, I think people do credit Paul Heyman just exclusively for that hardcore kind of thing, and even though he maybe did pioneer it, like you said, Vince kind of refined it and
Mm,
made the storytelling just fantastic. Like people were invested because it was raw. It was, people could relate in some cases.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
so yeah, that was yeah. We'll get to that match. So as you said, Limp Bizkit, the official theme song. Paul Heyman and
that's right.
JR on the call. Um, I don't know if at this time maybe they were just kind of shuffling between him and the King, or if the King was away for a little bit. They're just trying
Yeah,
something new.
you know, it's weird because hearing Heyman on there, I was a little taken back too because you expect that classic Lawler Ross dynamic. And to be honest, that's one of the best dynamics they've ever had. So yeah, that's a good question. Maybe some internet research will dig up why Lawler wasn't present for that moment. But Heyman did an all right job. I think it was fun to stage him
Yeah.
freshly out of their ECW acquisition. Had that's a good. Here's something for you. Did Vince own WCW and ECW by that time?
Yes. So yeah,
Okay.
ECW was definitely defunct or whatever by then,
Right.
and they had WCW. Part of the video package for the McMahon match kind of explains that. Um,
Mm,
where like the whole angle of Shane acquiring WCW, like they actually had it at that point, and that was like probably a month before Mania, and the the whole build was like Vince was going to sign officially that he owned WCW at this WrestleMania, and
okay.
then Shane bought it out from under him before that, so obviously they owned it. Um, and yeah, Heyman's there, so yeah,
Yeah, because I recall Shane O'Mac, especially with the match with Linda and the daughter, Stephanie. But then you also had the WCW wrestlers in the Sky Booths at
yeah,
WrestleMania
it's like
17.
5 dudes,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, just a five. Yeah, I don't. None of those faces really stood out to
I
me.
saw
Was Lance
Chavo.
Storm?
I
Okay,
saw
I thought I
Lance
saw Lance
Storm.
Storm.
Yeah, Lance
Mm-hmm.
Storm, Chavo. Um, maybe Steiner.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah, so then to kick off the show, they bring it out with like I'd say a very solid match. It was the Intercontinental Championship. The holder of the belt at the time was Chris Jericho, and
Right.
he is fighting the commissioner of WWF at the time, William Regal. And to my knowledge, commissioner is just a GM. They just didn't have a Raw and a SmackDown specific GM at that point, I think. So
I think you're right.
so
Mm-hmm.
he's just playing that role, and he's also an active competitor still. Um, so to get into it, like the video package just kind of showed Regal coming out and being like, "Hey, I'm the commissioner now," and then Jericho comes out and interrupts him, tells him to shut up, and then Regal, takes it from there, gets pissed off, and then continually over the weeks leading to Mania, just puts him in these tough situations, right? He's just like,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh, Jericho, you're gonna do this now. You're gonna fight this guy now." Whatever it is. And I didn't catch what it was exactly, but they bring up in commentary that Chris Jericho's shoulder is going to be bothering him. Um,
Yeah.
so I forget what exactly caused that, but that was a theme throughout the match was his shoulder.
Yeah, I think William Regal, he's fun because going back to that point, you're right, he was a GM role for both shows, and he had his desk. They leaned into his you know, British his British everything. He had the British flag. I think he even had a little British double decker bus on his desk. Um, but the match itself was pretty good. I wanted to kind of highlight something I noticed watching this match. Regal's style. I I could see how a guy like Gunther may have been inspired by Regal. If you pay attention to Regal's roughness, he's not a stiff worker and he's not super technical, but he gets technical at times and he can rough you up. He can rough you up. A lot of people have trained under Regal. A lot of people respect him. So to see him in the ring with somebody who is a future Hall of Famer, and um, did I move out of the scene?
Just a little. You're good.
Okay. Well, here, let me ask you this: which way is best?
Your left.
Okay, my left. Okay.
Okay.
So like this.
Yeah.
This is more comfortable for me. Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect. All right. But yeah, seeing him as a commissioner, right? He kind of let go of some of his in-ring work, but his in-ring work is great.
Yeah.
And Jericho isn't a novice at this point. I mean, the guy's lion salt. When I see him hit that off the ropes, it's I don't see a lion salt like that today. Everybody's obsessed with moonsaults, and you may see like a modified version by the Luchadors. But Jericho's lion salt was a highlight of that match. Did anything stick out to you in particular with their styles in ring?
So they made a point on commentary. There was a spot where Jericho got essentially hoisted up on the top turnbuckle, and Regal did this. Here, I wrote down what it was called as a double underhook. Double underhook suplex is what it was called. Whatever, just double underhook from the top rope, and they're just like, yeah, that was intense. Um, so that was pretty cool. I did notice Jericho is a little more snappy than obviously modern Jericho because he's old. Um, but to your point, the line salt, like it just seemed like super snappy. It was just like boom, boom, and like it looked
Yeah.
great, and that was ultimately what ended the match. But before that, I really liked some of the just emphasis on the shoulder, right? Like they had a few times where Regal just did that move where he whips him in between the turnbuckles to the ring post. Um,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
he exposed one of the turnbuckles at one point and got him with that.
Yep.
Um, and he ultimately, when he was trying to end the match, he put Jericho in this like modified STF looking thing, like
The
uh,
Regal stretch.
the Regal stretch. Yep, and
Yeah.
very. It looked like it kind of looked like Cena's, but a little more brutal. I think like Cena's kind of looks like he's just laying on the guy, but
Yeah, that was something that stuck out too, John, is the idea that Cena's STFU may have been like kind of paying homage to Regal because the Regal stretch is the STF for the most part. And watching Regal execute that, I'm like, oh, maybe some of these guys, maybe Regal is a big player. Maybe he is a teacher. Um, and I know the other episode you mentioned with Goldberg, he's went on air, and I went and pulled some clips up of that. He was like, "No, Goldberg's a terrible wrestler." I mean, I'm paraphrasing, but yeah. Now that
yeah,
I watched something like that, an opening match at WrestleMania, I could see why they had Regal in there, even though he was a commissioner, because it's not that Jericho was green or fresh, but who better to work with than this experienced, hardened veteran knows how to work an angle with his shoulder and everything, drill down on that aspect of the storytelling. And again, that's the word I'm looking for. Regal is a bruiser, but he can be technical when he wants to be. And
Definitely.
I guess when you go and watch Gunther, he's a throwback to that bruiser style, that bruiser weight, you know? So it was entertaining. I enjoyed it, and you're totally right. Jericho, so snappy, man. Just popping off. He's quick. He's so quick with the spots. And to see a younger Jericho do that, you're like, oh, no wonder why down the road they put the Universal title on him, or the first merger of the two belts.
Yeah, the what do they call undisputed? Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, something we forgot to mention off the top. We're implementing a grading system for our
That's
show
right.
here. So we're debuting that with this. But otherwise, we're kind of just. I think we're just gonna go the same route as Bad Blood, where we just kind of go top to bottom of the card. But this time we'll give a letter grade.
Yeah.
And Joel, if you want to maybe explain what would entitle a match to earn an A plus.
Sure. So an A plus would have to be so good that John and I stop podcasting. We stop watching wrestling. It is the quintessential send out to space, show the aliens, the extraterrestrials, what wrestling is. The A plus match is a theoretical benchmark that lets us kind of contrast what is perfect against how we grade everything else. Um, so to get to my point, the A plus doesn't exist. The best you could get is an A, because if we hit an A plus, it's over.
Right.
Wrestling's complete. There's no more wrestling future. We've accomplished everything. So,
And yeah, and then so hearing all that, I'm assuming people are going to think I give too many A's in the show. Spoiler alert. But
okay.
um anyways, so for this match
Near
specifically,
perfect.
for yeah, near perfect, like I won't say how many, you'll find out. Um
Okay.
so this match, I think people are gonna think I went a little low on. I give this a C plus.
That's about where I'm at with it. I'm actually gonna give it a C. And the reason why, it would have been a B minus for me, but it was a quick finish. They
Yeah,
should have let them do more in ring work, more storytelling. The shoulder angle was fine. They did push that. It was a highlight, but not much else.
right. And like as cool as it is to see the snappy line salt, um, just that it ended like that to me was just kind of But like it was of a different era. Like people weren't kicking out of finishers as much,
That's right.
so
Mm-hmm.
it's a little more understandable. But it just kind of ended with the line salt. So uh, yeah,
Yeah.
C plus for me, C for you.
Yeah,
Um,
that sounds about right.
all right, and then moving on to the next match, I'm gonna let you carry this one a little bit because I didn't really care
Sure.
about it. Um,
You didn't care about it. It wasn't
so
an A plus.
it wasn't an A plus.
Uh, so
Uh,
the next the
go
next
ahead.
match was Right to Censor. A lot of people probably don't remember Right to Censor, and rightfully so. It's
Yeah,
been censored out of history. Versus APA and Taz. So that was interesting. You really get to see the height difference between the suplex machine Taz and a guy like Farouk and
hmm
Bradshaw. Um, so that was kind of cool. So, right to censor right off the bat, you could tell that these guys aren't going any. They're not going to go anywhere on the card. They're
no,
basically at the height of their expertise in my book, because their promos. Who who is the one guy? Stevie. Ah, I'm drawing a blank.
you're talking about he's on YouTube now a lot. Uh,
Yep. He's now on
Stevie,
YouTube.
Stevie. Stevie Richards.
Stevie, there you go. Yep, friends with the blue meanie. Um, that guy was probably the best wrestler out of that whole group as far as longevity goes. He had a pretty successful career. He trained a lot of guys. But I just wanted to say the actual gimmick, right to censor people, if you have time, pull this up. This needs to come back. I feel like there's a renaissance for right to censor in today's. It was the first thing that went through my mind, John. I was like, God, this gimmick needs to return because we're at just a ripe time in political, social history for this little group to come back as a gimmick. The right to censor, they literally had a tie. They give you guys a visual for those who don't really know what they look like. They wore like business suit attire. They just wore a button up with a tie and black pants. It looks like they were all like servers for like casual restaurant. And they had a dress code and they had a block sign over their tie for like and their theme song the whole time is just an annoying siren.
Yeah, that's the
Just
worst part.
it's the worst. It's so bad. It's so cringy.
Yeah.
But looking back on it, if you could repackage that today and you had people come out as a super group called the Right to Censor, and with the social media elements, this gimmick should not be dead. It should be hitting its peak, you know. I don't recall too much of the weekly shows and what kind of promos they cut. And I didn't realize Ivory, the women's champion
Mhm.
at this time, was a part of Right to Censor. So now I'm interested in how did this group form? When did it fall apart? And why isn't it back? Um, but APA had a lot of good spots. It's always fun to watch Bradshaw, especially Farouk, when they're on the same page,
Mhm.
just go back and forth. I mean, that's why they were a tag team for so long until Ron Simmons retired and JBL became a best-selling author of financial advice
Yeah.
and
The Fox News
and
show, and
a little pun. Yeah, he's a pundit. So I was just gonna say that JBL, watching him in this match, he really shined. That clothesline from hell. Oh my god. Uh, Taz didn't really Taz didn't show up the way I wanted him to. He was a
yeah.
little bit dwarfed. Did you have any thoughts at all? Did you kind of just breeze by it and just you were like Joel's gonna he loves
Yeah.
right to censor.
Yeah. Well, I just for time purposes I was like kind of whatever, but I went and watched it again. I I was gonna make a joke earlier that they should be called right to cancel, just because like all these
Yeah.
gimmicks would just be canceled now. Like they canceled Godfather essentially and made him Good Father, right, for this group.
Well,
And
pimpin's not easy, John.
yeah, so he's he's the Good Father, and then you got Val Venus, which
Oh God.
is Val Venus. He's hello ladies and
He
coming
used
out
to
in the
come out in a
towel.
towel.
Yeah. And then I don't know who the third one was, to be honest. But yeah, I just thought it'd be so funny how none of those original versions of those gimmicks could exist today, and then they form a group where they're censoring. Like it's great. I like that part.
Yeah.
But as far as like the alarm and just I don't know. It just didn't sit well with me. So we'll just go with I breezed through this and I gave it a D, and you tell me why it's not a D.
Oh, no, it's definitely a D. No,
Okay.
it is a D. I agree with
Okay.
you. I was just I can't justify what happened in the ring, but I can tell you that everything about that gimmick is golden today.
Yeah. No, we're
So
on the
maybe
same
it's
page
ahead of
there.
its time.
It'd be
Yeah.
so awesome. Um,
Um, yeah.
so
Nothing
yeah,
much beyond that.
that's how it
So
ended, right? The clothesline from
flat
hell.
B. Pretty sure that's how Bradshaw kind of, yep, summed it up and went for the 1, 2, 3, a clothesline from hell.
And then post that match, there's a quick backstage segment where Trish is wheeling Linda McMahon uh,
Yep.
by Stephanie, who's wearing a daddy's girl jumpsuit. Um, They briefly interact about the after party for when Vince inevitably beats Shane, or so they
Right.
think. Um, one just one thing I wanted to point out about this that I found absurd was Stephanie requested that Trish crushes ice by spoon because that's the best way to have crushed ice.
It's better that way.
So yeah, you can already kind of tell like she's trying to rustle something up with Trish there because that's just weird. Um, but yeah, so then after that segment, we go into the Hardcore Championship match. Uh,
That's right.
this one was fun. We had Raven come out with his grocery cart full of supplies. Um, Kane enters. The fire goes off, and Jr. and Heyman have to make a comment about how hot it is. They're
Of
like, "Man,
course.
it's hot."
Fire and brimstone.
So they kind of start the match after Kane enters, even though Big Show is also part of this match. Um, they just they
Yeah.
start beating each other up, and then Big Show's theme music hits, and he starts walking to the ring. Um,
And it took him a while because he's the big slow.
the Big Slow took
And
forever.
yeah.
um,
No, it was a good match for the pacing of a hardcore match.
yeah, I'd say so. I thought it was funny, like before even Big Show got to the ring, though, like Kane held Raven over his head and like tossed him out of the ring to Big Show, and then goes up on the top turnbuckle, takes them both out. I was just like, "Holy crap, Kane!" Like that was
Yeah.
incredible.
I heard the commentators more than once say, this is Raven just needs to have these two knock each other out and it will be all his. And you could tell that they wanted to work that angle in. And at times it was great. Other times it was a little sloppy. Some
Yeah,
things that stood out to me was the first time they kind of spilled out of the arena and, or excuse me, out of the ring into the audience and went throughout the arena.
yeah,
The camera work is so much more refined now, and I chop that up to the fact that the cameramen back then, a lot of them still had cords
oh yeah,
hanging from their cameras. So it's like, wow, okay, how do you plan these spots in a hardcore match when they're going from the crowd to backstage and you have to wield all these cables? So I noticed that right away. Some of the camera angles were very rough. And once they got backstage and you could tell where they could set up their spots, it got better. One thing that stood out to me was first off, early in the match, yeah, having Kane throw Raven, but I forgot how Kane can fly. Early on in the match, Kane jumps from the top rope to the outside of the ring on Raven and Big Show. And that was like shortly after Kane threw Raven
yeah.
onto Big Show. And I was like, God, I forgot how like nimble Kane was as this giant. Um, and then I also, once we get backstage, Raven through a window. That
Yep.
was brutal.
Raven through the window, and Kane got, or was it Big Show? One of them got put through an office door or whatever too.
Yeah,
Um,
it was paper thin though.
yeah, paper thin, and they went through a paper thin wall in that room as well.
That's right. Yeah.
Um, they end up on golf carts. Um,
The golf cart was great because towards the end of the golf cart run, it really looked like they were gonna run each other over with it, and then you're like, no, slam on the brake, and it's like, why didn't you hit him? This is a hardcore match.
right.
But
I think they tried to make it look like he got hit, but like it was just
yeah,
really bad.
yeah, because part of me was like, oh, were they actually going to do that? And then reality set in that this is real life still. And
Yeah.
they have to go and do another show next week. Um, so yeah, the golf cart was pretty crazy. Um, I thought the finish was a little reckless, but I
Okay.
liked everything else in the match. Were there other spots that really stood out to you, or
No, I think shortly after the golf carts is when they make their way back onto the main
yeah,
stage. Um, And essentially, for people who didn't watch it, it ends up with Big Show like lifting Raven over his head, like he's gonna toss him onto the bottom part of the stage. But then here comes Kane, kicks Big Show while he's holding him, so they both get knocked through the stage. And then Kane jumps and does like this leg drop into all this debris. And they all just kind of lay there, and the ref counts 1, 2, 3, and
Yeah,
that's the end.
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't the ref even like count 1, 2, 3 on the side of whatever they
Yeah.
fell in?
Yeah, he was
Which
like
I thought was
outside.
just really funny.
It's like they're in
Uh,
this aquarium, and it's just like, oh my
no,
gosh.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I guess I just don't remember how the hardcore matches were so chaotic. And I say the finish was reckless because I thought the leg drop was like, I don't know, it just seemed sloppy. They
Okay.
should have they should have had him kick both of them in there, and then I don't know. Maybe I'm just expecting too much. But we didn't really see any choke slams that were notable. There were
No.
some teases. You have two guys who had choke slams as finishers. And Raven, God, Raven, holy crap. He always looks like he's just fresh out of like rehab or
Oh yeah.
something.
Yeah.
Like he's bladed too much on the forehead or something. Um, but I will give this match, because of the novelty, a B minus.
I literally wrote B minus as well. So
Wow, that's and we to clarify, we haven't discussed this
yes,
before.
correct.
I mean, this is called choreographed critics, but we're not choreographed like that.
No, we're improvised critics here.
We're improvised critics.
Um.
Obviously, I can't even lean the right way with our.
uh.
But yeah,
So
so B minus, man. I
B
agree with
minus.
you.
After that, there was a brief interaction with Kurt Angle with Edge and Christian. I can't exactly remember the nature of it, but
I could
that.
tell you, he was um, so Angle was looking kind of zoned out, and this is before the perk Angle addiction, I assume, but he still looks zoned out, and he was watching clips of him uh, tapping out
Oh,
to
that's right.
Benoit's crippler crossface, and Edge and Christian are like, "Hey, what's up, dude? We got a TLC match. What are you doing?" And Angle's like, "Do you believe this? I didn't lose." And so that was it.
Okay. All right. Thanks for adding that, because yeah, I didn't didn't remember that at all. Um, and then after they're talking, they cut to Jonathan Coachman interviewing a fan from Australia because they want to talk about how global WWE is in 2001. So, um,
Oh man, you know, I don't want to like drag Jonathan the Coachman into this discussion because he's like a topic on his own.
sure.
With well, he is because you've seen all the press, right? And how he was let go with the company and how he's a little bit bitter about it all.
Yeah, but I don't know. I kind of assume everyone's bitter after getting let go from there,
Oh, I
but
suppose
I don't
everybody's a
know.
little pissed off. Well, all I wanted to mention is how cool was it that Vince was on the ball and had WWE.com in 2001?
Oh yeah.
He already knew he had to have an online presence as an entertainment industry. I don't know. I
I
just
think,
think that's so incredible.
and a little bit after that, I think is when they, like a year or two after that, they had that pay per view where like fans could go vote on who was fighting who, kind of thing, online, which was a neat idea, but everyone knew it was kind of just, it was written, it was choreographed. Like
Yeah.
nobody voted for. I don't even remember a specific, um, but yeah, that is a good point. Did he have WWE and F, or he just had F? Right?
I say WWE because of my self-censoring nature.
Okay. I was just checking because that would have been even more incredible if he had WWE also. Like he knew
Yeah,
he was
yeah.
going to
He
have to
knew
change
he
the
was
name.
gonna. Yeah. I filed trademarks on all
Yeah,
the
this
possible litigation.
this may happen. Um,
uh, yeah.
So then moving on to the next match, we got Eddie Guerrero joined by Perry Saturn, which I would have to look into why that's a relationship. Couldn't tell you. And he is fighting Test for the European title. Um, Rest in peace to both of these men. Um, I'm gonna
By the
pause
way, if
quick.
you can, yeah.
All right, we had a brief disruption there. Anyways, this match is Eddie Guerrero versus Test for the European title. Rest in peace
Mm,
to both of these men.
mm.
I didn't know much about Test to begin with, so I can't really speak to him so much. He was just this big dude, right? Like he kind of. I feel like when people call like Randy Orton the prototypical wrestler, like figure
Oh yeah,
form, like Test is kind of there too. He's just
yeah.
taller. Um, yeah, did you have much knowledge about Test yourself, or
I mean, my knowledge of Test is stuck in the mid card and then fell victim to a romance between Stephanie and Triple H because he was originally Stephanie's boyfriend.
oh yeah,
And he had a sad life thereafter. And what's really uh, kind of disgusting, I suppose is the right word, they wrote in, as they do, especially under Vince, they wrote in the weird feud with Triple H and Tess and Stephanie. To my knowledge, Triple H was with China, Stephanie was with Tess, and then there was this weird wedding storyline between Tess and Stephanie that Triple H ruins
yeah,
on camera as a wrestler. But behind the scenes, there was a real love affair brewing between Stephanie and Triple H. And Test was aware of that, and China was aware of that angle too. So when I think of Test, the first word that comes to mind is tragic because after his exit from wrestling, I think he died of a drug overdose.
okay,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, one thing that Paul Heyman said on commentary during this match that I found hilarious was he's just like, "Can you imagine how much class it would add having a Mexican as a European champion?" And JR goes, "I don't exactly know about that. Respect your opinion on that one." Um, so
Yeah. What else do you say to that?
yeah, okay, yeah, you're right, Paul. All right. Um, so there's one spot in this match I wanted to point out, which was Tess getting stuck in the ropes, Damian Priest style.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that did happen. Mm-hmm.
it was so funny, and it just looked exactly the same because they're both tall men. They're both
Yep.
like kind of longer hair. They're like dangling out of the ring. Um, but yeah, so Eddie ends up helping get him out because he knows he can't win the belt via disqualification, count out, etc.
Right.
uh, so that happened. There was some Perry Saturn interference spots that happened. There's one time where the ref was distracted by Eddie. He goes in the ring, Perry does, and he gets a whole brainbuster off. And like, I could have swore like if it was real, like he was definitely in the ref's peripheral. Like it just he wasn't even
Yeah.
looking completely the opposite way, but the ref never saw because it's wrestling. Um,
Well, and Eddie too, right? The lie, cheat, and steal was starting to bubble as his gimmick. Um, but that terrible, oh my gosh, that terrible entrance music, Latino, he, Latino, and it's like it's Cinco de Mayo, but also kind of cringy bar. I don't know, but
yeah,
yeah, the ref definitely saw that. Tess, one of the spots I'd like to point out, and I don't know if it's accurate to say he was stiff in the ring, but holy shit. Did you see his power bombs?
oh yeah, yeah,
Man, poor Eddie just smack right off the mat. And like you said, Tess is a ginormous man. And every time it happened, I just kind of my back stiffened up. I was like, that there's no way that bump didn't hurt.
Yeah, definitely. Um, did you have anything else you want to point out? Otherwise, I was just gonna say the finish.
No, no. I just wanted to say that this must have been Eddie starting to kind of bubble up as a talent. I'm not sure about Perry Saturn and why they were a part of. Maybe it was just like some residual from WCW, and they just thought, just throw these two together. They're two cats that know each other.
That could be. Yeah.
Um, but I'll give this match a C.
I also said C.
Okay.
Essentially, how the match ended here is Dean Malenko ends up interfering, and
Yep.
which makes Eddie go grab the European title, and he hits Test over it with the ref distracted, and yeah, 1, 2, 3, and yeah, we both give it a C. It's kind of, it was average. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd say so.
And then from there, there's a interview with Michael Cole. He's interviewing special guest referee Mick Foley regarding the McMahon match. I don't
Yeah.
remember any specific quotes from that. Um,
Just seeing a young Michael Cole is kind of fun.
was he on commentary yet at that point? Because there was a SmackDown.
I I want to say he wasn't, but part of me thinks he might have filled in or started to, because when I
Okay.
was young, I swear he was the same. He played the same role Jonathan the Coachman played.
Yeah, that's how I felt about
Um,
him. At least in WrestleMania. I can't recall just regular
yeah,
weekly TV.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so they have that interview, and then comes the Angle versus Chris Benoit match. We were both really big fans of this match.
oh
Um,
yeah.
halfway
Hmm.
through Kurt's entrance, he cuts a promo on the booing fans. I don't know too much of the substance of it. He was just talking about how he represents America, and he's got the gold. He's got gold. Um, he says at the end of his promo that he'll never tap to Benoit.
That's
Um,
right.
so this match was awesome. There's just a lot of like attempted submission moves that are then countered into other submission moves. Uh, at one point, they try to put each other in each other's finishing moves. Like you see Kurt going for the crippler crossface, and they're like, "Oh my god, crippler crossface!" And they get a spot with Chris Benoit putting Angle into the ankle lock as well.
That's right.
Did you have any spots as well that you wanted to highlight?
Well, yeah, I wanted to say that I believe in the beginning of that match, those two were legitimately shooting when they were trying to perform takedowns. I feel like they were going at it legitimately, trying to get real wrestling takedowns on one another. And it shifted back into professional wrestling. But the opening 2 minutes, John, just watching it, I think those two were just farting around and trying to get a real takedown and a real pin.
That could be,
Just
yeah.
just for the hell of it, because the back and forth was great throughout, but if you pay attention to the opening, it just feels like I'm saying this too with my knowledge of there's a lot of stories about Kurt Angle in the backstage locker room letting people wrestle him just to see if they could get a takedown or a pin. There's lots of stories about Angle trying to prove his gold medal mentality, and other guys going up and being like, "Oh, you're an Olympian, huh? Well, let me see if I could score a takedown on you." So that opening was fantastic to see two guys perform real wrestling, like Greco-Roman style wrestling, for a good solid 2 minutes, and then transition into the rest of the match. Mwah. It that alone bumped it a whole grade for me.
I
Um,
yeah, I was gonna mention something about my grade too. We'll get to it.
okay. Uh, yeah, excellent back and forth. I think I had obviously the whole Angle does tap, but the ref doesn't see it, so it happens
Right.
again. So the fans have the whole yeah, but you tapped, Angle at this time, his heel work is great because he just knows how to get under your skin.
And there was a point too
Um,
where he Kurt Angle hit the Angle Slam, and Heyman like brought to the attention he'd never seen anyone kick out of that before. Um,
oh, that's interesting.
so yeah, and it was pretty clean too. It wasn't like the ref was just getting back to life from being incapacitated or anything. Like it, he just kicked out of the Olympic Slam. Um, there's a spot where Kurt does a moonsault, but Benoit has his knees up. So Kurt ends up on the mat, and Benoit follows that up with his patented diving headbutt.
Oh
Um,
yeah. Oh yeah.
Kurt kicks out of a near fall from that. Uh, there was a low blow Kurt got in when the referee was out as well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and let's see. Yeah, so at the end when the ref is back into it, basically Benoit rolls up Angle with an armbar takeover type of thing, and Angle reverses it and rolls him up and is pulling on the tights a little bit for the one,
Got it
two,
with the
three.
tights.
Got the leverage. So I'm just gonna say this real quick. I gave this match a B+, but then a little bit after it during this next like backstage segment, it put it over to an A- for me. There was just immediately after they show like this video package of WWF visiting the troops and all that. Um, they where sorry, where's it going?
Well,
Duh.
just the
Oh yeah, sorry. Kurt gets interviewed after that video package and basically just still says he doesn't respect Benoit and they'll never make him tap. And then Benoit attacks him from behind, puts him in a crossface, makes him tap
and he
backstage.
taps.
Yeah, so that put it over from a B+ to A- for me.
Okay, okay. Well, okay. I I was gonna say a B, but I kind of forgot about. I didn't forget, but now that you bring it up, having that happen afterwards bumps it to a B+ for me. So pretty close.
Yeah,
The only reason I really wanted, I I understand they wanted Angle to do the best heel work possible, but I felt a cleaner finish would have been more appropriate at WrestleMania.
okay,
But then again, because you already had the angle of, oh, Kurt Angle's gonna tap when the ref's not looking, so he already lost. If you had Kurt finish clean, that would have been a stronger argument to continue their feud. Because it's
sure.
like, well, Kurt did beat him, but he also didn't beat him. But in this way, it's like, Kurt, you're just a dirty bastard.
Yeah, I don't know how much pulling the tights even matters. Like that's just wrestling logic. Um,
Well, 1, 2, 3.
yeah. So yeah, like I was saying, there was like this video package of WWF visiting the troops. Then they had that Kurt Angle, Chris Benoit thing. And then from there, the next match was the women's championship. Ivory of Right to Censor is the champion versus China. Um, at one point in the match, JR said that he thought this was the first time China was competing for the women's title. But then he corrected himself and recalled that apparently how she got injured in the past was fighting Ivory in a women's championship match.
Oh,
Um, but before that, she had had like the Intercontinental Championship and stuff like that, which is bizarre. That's not something that
that
happens.
is. Yeah.
Um, so it was kind of a squash match, though. I mean, did you have any particular spots that you cared? No.
Oh, yeah, I do have a spot to point out how bad the match was.
Okay.
Besides it being a squash match, did you catch Ivory throwing hands in the basically the beginning? She gets on top of China and she's pounding away, I think with both hands. And it turns out she's like visibly not connecting at all.
Mm.
And I'm thinking, you guys, this is WrestleMania. What is this? This isn't Sunday Night Heat or wherever Ivory came from. No,
Yeah.
it just Ivory felt out of place, and I don't remember. anything really about her like, because Lita and Trish dominated the women's scene, I think shortly after this.
Yeah.
So Ivory to me seems out of place. China, I don't know if she had face work, but she seemed really young in this. Maybe this was before she had plastic surgery. She also seemed a little more thin. So, yeah, my timeline for some of these more obscure talents, it's always going to be off, but Ivory, man, she fell down my memory hole until I watched that match. And I was like, oh, yeah, there was a female women's champion named Ivory. Oh,
Hmm.
yeah, there was Right to Censor. But I remember China. So to sum it up, unforgettable, or not unforgettable, forgettable, but it was unforgettable to watch her make visibly no connection hitting China in the middle of the ring at WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I would have fired her.
Yeah. So I gave this a D.
Mm. Yeah, I'm with you. I would go as far as D minus because of that. You just you got to connect somewhat. If you're gonna be throwing slaps, at least like have the end of your fingers
Yeah.
connect. So yeah, D minus. Uh, I would give it an F if it wasn't at WrestleMania. Like if this match occurred without any context and this was just a squash match between the two women, it would be an F. But the only saving grace is you were at WrestleMania and there was some build.
Right. I kind of, I don't know. Should we define an F as Giovanni Vinci versus what's
All
his
you
name
need to
there?
do is say
Cedric.
Giovanni Vinci.
So yeah, no, I didn't give the show any Fs at all.
No, I don't think anything warranted an F,
That
but this
was
was close.
that was the worst. We'll just say it. It was the worst match. Um,
Yeah.
and then from there, they get into this gigantic story of Vince versus Shane.
Oh boy.
The video package for
Yeah.
this is intense. Like,
Wild.
yeah, the whole backstory of just Vince like on SmackDown telling Linda he wants to get a divorce, like just in front
Yeah.
of everybody, just I want a divorce. Um, and it it fucks her up, man. She just ends up like institutionalized from this, right? Like per the story, she's institutionalized, and so now she's at a point where she's like just super drugged up and in a wheelchair all day. Um,
That's right.
Shane essentially challenges Vince to this match at Mania for all of his wrongdoings. It was before the WCW acquisition that they even were going to have this match. Um, they emphasize more than once that Vince will never forgive Linda for giving birth to Shane.
Yeah, yeah. And this is a street match, mind you. This is a street match at WrestleMania. Not too
Right.
many happen. Part of me wonder, is this the only street match that occurred at WrestleMania?
Well, they say during the Rock and Stone Cold match that it became an unofficial street fight.
That's
Um,
true. No disqualification.
yeah. Um, but yeah, so Linda's drugged up. Shane then announces on WCW Nitro Live that he bought WCW from underneath Vince. And then that brings us up to the match here. One thing I thought was kind of funny is Vince and Shane have the same theme music. Like they didn't give Shane the "Here come the money," they didn't give him that yet.
Nope.
So they come out to the same music. We mentioned earlier Mick Foley, guest referee.
Yep.
Vince is joined by Stephanie McMahon Helmsley. That's like my favorite thing. I'm calling her that.
Right.
Stephanie McMahon / Helmsley.
And the daddy girl jumper is a little much.
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't like revealing or anything. It was just ridiculous.
Yeah, just ridiculous.
So the fight starts. Let's see. Shane has Vince on the mat at one point. Stephanie then like tries to like protect Vince, like covers him, just trying to stop her, uh, what do you want to call him, evil brother from beating up her dad. Um, she slapped Shane, and what happened then? Then they just kind of started getting weapons at that point. Just started,
You got to remember, they went through the Spanish announce table. That was
yeah,
like a staple of the Attitude Era for a long time. Who's gonna go through an announce table? Okay, which one are you gonna go through? The Spanish announce table.
Spanish, of course. And yeah, so he puts him through the table there. Or no, he puts him on the table rather, and then he goes up to the top rope to attempt a diving elbow. He gets it off, but Stephanie pulls Vince to safety, and Shane just
That's right.
crashes through. Um, at that point, that's when Trish rolls out Linda, because that's like when Vince wanted him to. Is like when Shane's incapacitated, bring her out. Um, so yeah,
It's maniacal.
it's very maniacal. They roll Linda over to the area by the announce tables. Um, Trish approaches Vince and ends up turning on him. Did he call her a bitch or something? I can't remember. Something happened, and then he she turned on him.
Yeah, and she definitely turns on him. I don't know. So when I was younger, remembering the build of this, I was always like, I shouldn't be watching this. Like, it seems so risque and maniacal, like I said. But having Vince have his comatose wife rolled into the ring, put on a chair, and Vince is like doing his macho gimmick, and he's like gonna be like, watch me finish my own blood. And she rises up and kicks him in the nuts.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And at that point, I go, okay, that's when it set in. I mean, some of my notes at that point, Vince is a madman. Linda McMahon deserves an Emmy. Shane is a stuntman. Insane. Those are just my quick thoughts. And the whole theater of it all is like this mini narrative of like a dysfunctional family, but there's so much bleed through in the light of reality about the McMahons that I just look back on this and go, holy shit. Did McMahon, like, my wife asked me, she's like, did he just incorporate all his sick fantasies in the Attitude Era into like a bunch of different angles? I'm like, that's a good question, because looking back at some of this stuff, it is wild. I mean, was he sitting in the creative room being like, yeah, and then we'll put my comatose wife after the bombshell blonde turns on me, and I'm gonna pin my son Shane, but first she's gonna kick me in the nuts, and then Shane's gonna put a trash can in my face, and he's gonna go from one turnbuckle to the other and smash into me.
Yeah, how do you get to that point, right? Oh my gosh.
I don't know, a lot of enablers maybe in the creative room. They're like, yeah, Vince, yeah, totally.
Yeah, Bruce
It's
Pritchard just
wild.
sitting there like, yeah, Vince, sure, I'll paint my face right. I'll be this I love you guy. Yeah, let's do it. Um Gosh, he came out for the gimmick battle royal, didn't he? Uh
Yeah, I think he did. Yeah. As but what did he come out as? See, now that's the one match I did glaze over. Like
yeah,
I was like, "Oh, I want to see the end." Oh, it's Iran versus America. Okay.
right. Yeah. Yeah, it was that guy. He would always say I love you, and he had like the red face, and
Yes.
yeah.
Suspenders.
Yeah, I can't remember his name though. Mr. something.
Mr. IRS. No.
Mr. RTC, yeah. So
Yeah, no.
manager's right to
So
censor.
there you go. What would you give that McMahon street fight?
So I gave it a B.
Yeah, that's funny because I give it a B as well.
Okay.
And I gave it a B because by the end of it, I was won over by just how manic it all was. And at the end of the day, I still remember the weekly shows with Trish being like a weird submissive bombshell to Vince, and Linda just sitting there comatose. And I haven't seen anything like it again. And it was such a blurred line for Vince,
Yeah.
now that we know more about his personal life, that I was just like, you know what? This is visionary in some ways.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a B. What he did was visionary. Yes, Vince McMahon, hate to say it, is a visionary. That's why WWF won the war.
Exactly. I think we're gonna take a quick break here, and when we come back, it'll be the TLC match, which I'm most looking forward to talking about.
Yeah,
So
sounds good.
we will be right back. All right, and we're back.
Whoa, we are back.
We are at
Yes.
the TLC match. This is TLC 2. They say that quite a bit because there was a TLC 1. I think it was the same three teams, right? Both
I
times?
believe so. They mentioned how, like, well, the fact that you remember this one the most tells you something, right?
Yeah.
So, um, one thing that, so, okay, first of all, you have the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys, Christian and Edge. Phenomenal, phenomenal wrestlers. I'll tell you why. Every single one of them, except for the Dudley Boys, had successful solo runs.
Yeah.
So I'll just start with that. Anything right off the bat stick out to you? I can tell you that I forgot how entertaining the Dudley Boys were. We don't have anything like that
No.
now. And the New Day, some of those guys could be to that at that level, that caliber, but no, they're not. There's something about the camaraderie between those two that seems genuine, not a gimmick. And we know in real life they're actually quite close.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess something that stood out to me too is just like before the match even started, just them showing the ring crew just kind of setting up all these different tables and chairs and ladders just along the entrance ramp. Um, the Hardys first enter, followed by Christian and Edge, then the Dudleys. They keep bringing up Papa Dudley and Dudleyville throughout the match. I don't actually know the folklore there, um, but one thing that Jr. brought up during the commentary is that he thinks that Dudleyville is located near parts unknown. So that's classic.
Yeah, there you go. That
um,
maps it out.
yeah. So there's so many spots. Like trying to think of
Oh
even
my.
where to start. Like you get the Dudleys setting up one of them in the corner, holding his legs open, then goes up on the turnbuckle, does a what?
Yep,
Does a
yep.
diving headbutt to the groin. Um, there's so many spots of tables. You see them like setting up tables at the end of the entranceway, and they're like stacking them. There's like four tables. You're just like, what the hell?
Yeah, okay. So John, I think I told you last TLC match or whatever ladder match that was a pay-per-view a while back. I texted you, I'm like, man, this is terrible because they keep exchanging spots in the middle of the ring and focusing on two wrestlers or maybe three, and the rest are like laying on the floor, not doing anything, waiting for their next spot.
Yeah,
This TLC match, everyone shines. Everything has a superb flow to it. It's just bang, 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 nonstop, total nonstop action. And I was also going to say the way they all went up the ladder early on in the match, if you recall, there's like three ladders set up. You get two, two, and two climbing up, and they're all just hammering away at each other. And commentary is like, yeah, egging it on, and then they all scatter and fall.
yeah,
That was brilliant. That set the tone how everybody was going to shine. Everybody would have a spot. Everybody would have a chance. And man, the pacing. I still haven't, in recent memory, seen anything that good.
Oh, for sure. And one thing with those ladders lined up too, like there was that spot. Forget who it was. Oh, it was Jeff Hardy. He climbs to the top turnbuckle and he like tight ropes across these ladders, right?
That's right.
Gets to the center one, and I think he grabs the title at that point, and Edge kicks it out from him. So there's that spot too where he's just like dangling from that, and that leads to one of the most infamous spots ever.
Yeah.
When
Yep.
you see Edge climbing up an adjacent ladder from where Jeff Hardy's dangling, and he just from 20 feet in the air spears him midair, hanging from the freaking title. It was so cool.
Yeah, and that's kind of later in the match, but some stuff that stuck out to me early on too. Spike Dudley, the bump machine.
Oh yeah,
He's out there. He's taking bumps. I think Jeff Hardy does. Was it a leg drop or a swanton? It was outside the ring onto Rhino and Spike Dudley
yeah, off of the ladder, right?
off the ladder. And then shortly thereafter, Jeff does the parkour, I think you were talking
Yep,
about,
yep.
across the ladders. But then I think he botches, to be honest, on his last dive towards the title because he has to set up the ladder again. It
Yeah,
falls
that's
over.
true. Yeah, yep.
That was the only notable or noticeable botch. Everything else was so fluid and convincing. You had Lita in there. You had co-ed wrestling. You had Lita taking bumps from guys. She jumps off the top rope. She does a hurricanrana to Rhino, I believe.
Yeah, I was just gonna say Rhino was like assaulting her, and then he eventually gets Hurricane Rana from her. Yeah,
Yeah, just wild stuff. Okay, another facet of this marvelous match is the selling. All of those guys sold it. I mean, you don't have to do much to sell your bump if you're Spike Dudley, but every single person sold beautifully. You could see the real agony when the bump hurt, but you also could see the agony when it was just a well executed move that probably gave him a scrape, nothing more.
right.
Um, God, and Jeff, man, high as hell, and that's in more ways than one, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But he took so many leaps of faith when he was a young guy. Um, Going back and seeing him jump from a 20-foot ladder, you go, man. I mean, I get it. People leap off the steel cages these days. But when's the last time you saw a 20-foot ladder in a ladder match in
yeah.
WWE or AEW?
AW maybe, but I can't recall.
Yeah, I mean, was that coffin drop with Sting's retirement match? Was that a 20-footer?
No, but I think it probably was after you take into account like because he went out of the ring. I'm pretty sure.
That's right.
So
That's
it
right.
was it had the extra however much footage there. Um, yeah, and then so yeah, I brought up the spear a little early, but um, yeah, it anyone who hasn't seen it, just look up Edge TLC spear, and it should be the first thing you see.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and if you haven't seen it, I don't think you're a wrestling fan. I'll just put it out there.
For real. It's one of those yeah, it's used in a lot of the montage reels too, I believe. At
Yeah,
least they used to. And there you go. Talk about selling. Holy shit. That spear looked like it hurt, but both men played it off. They were so cool. Cool as cucumbers and carried on.
for sure. And like with Jeff's long hair and like the baggy pants and stuff, just the visuals seeing him like get folded in half as he's getting speared, it just emphasizes that so much more too. Um, so the finish of this match was they had Matt Hardy and Bubba Ray Dudley at the top of the ladder. Ryan tips the ladder, and both these men fall through the stacked like six tables or whatever that are out by the ring or the entrance ramp rather. Um, Christian goes up to grab the title, and he gets hoisted up by Rhino. Um,
That's right.
Devon is on the other side, and Edge is like restraining him from getting up, and that's how Christian takes the belt, and they become the new champions, taking it from the Dudleys. I gave this
Yeah.
match an A.
Yep. Same here. A. Full through A. There's
If
nothing to complain about.
if it was a percentage, I'd give it 97.
Yeah. Okay. I'd give it a 95.
Okay. Um. So yeah, then after that match, we're gonna breeze through this stuff quick. There's like this WWF fan access video package thing that they put together. They have that whole WWE New York thing going on at the time in Times Square.
That's right.
Um, they just show a bunch of meet and greets, etc. Um, they announced the Astrodome attendance record, which every pay per view ever has the attendance record. It seems like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. It's the biggest one yet.
so they say the amount is 66,000 something, right? And then as soon as the number hits, it cuts to the crowd cheering, and then you hear, "This time I'm letting it all come out." And they just cut into Limp Bizkit, because that's what you do. You have a theme song, you use it as much as you can.
That's
Um,
right.
and right after that, neither me or Joel cared about this at all. There's a gimmick
No.
battle royal, and essentially all this meant was we're going to take the worst gimmicks of the 80s and the 90s and throw them all in the ring at the same time. Not the worst, but they just all seem terrible compared to like
They
modern.
aged. Yeah. They aged poorly.
Yeah, I don't. They maybe weren't that out of touch in 2001, but now so far removed, it's like, yeah. It was kind of the cool thing about this match though was they got Mean Gene Okerlund and Bobby the Brain Heenan to call it, and you know Bobby was one of the best color commentators of that entire era, the 80s to 90s, and Mean Gene
Mm.
is just everybody knows who Mean Gene is. He's the guy. He comes out the microphone. I'm standing here with Hulk Hogan, blah blah blah. So all the old heads got a huge pop from that. Just having those two on the call. I don't know if Bobby Heenan did anything else after that for
Oh.
WWE or otherwise. He passed away a few years after that.
Oh.
So uh, what was I going to say about it? So I guess at the end of the match here, so they got all these different gimmicks. They got Doink the Clown. They got Sergeant Slaughter. They got what's his name? The 2x4.
Hacksaw Jim.
There you go. Hacksaw Jim Duggan. This whole cast of characters. Iron Sheik ends up getting the final elimination to Sergeant Slaughter. That was like the 80s feud, essentially. Like, if most people that watch wrestling in the 80s before we were born, like, I assume they know all about like the Iran and US,
Contra and
yeah, all that all that kind of stuff. So Iron Sheik gets the victory, but then Slaughter's like pissed off after, and attacks him. Um, gives him the Cobra clutch to take him out, even though the match was still over. And then just kind of funny thing at the end, like they cut to Mean Gene and Bobby, and they're like, "Oh, it was fun," blah blah blah. And like the whole time, like you can see Gene's like trying to get a handshake, and Bobby just won't do it. Like, gives them the that thing, and
yeah, yeah.
so I just, because neither of us cared about it, I'll give it a D plus, just because it's kind of cool seeing those guys in commentary, and maybe some of the gimmicks are like, oh, that guy. Um, but yeah, otherwise we didn't really care.
Yeah, if I had to grade it, I'd give it a C minus.
Hmm,
Just because I'm sure if I was more in touch with that era, I would find it fascinating.
true. Yeah, a lot of it is just for me. I know a lot of the guys just from my dad talking about it, or like some old
Yeah.
YouTube clips, that kind of stuff. Um, but yeah, so then once that disaster was over, we had Undertaker versus Triple H, and this was like super smug Triple H at the time. Like he's beaten everybody, nobody can beat me. And then of course Taker's like, "You've never beat me," and
That's
you know
right. It's his yard.
it's the Taker's yard. Yeah. Um, yeah, there's just a bunch of stuff in the video package of Taker just smashing out limo windows and like having to be restrained going to the ring when like Triple H and Steph are in there. And there was like this random part where Regal gets asked by Triple H to press charges on him, and he said he'd take care of it. And he presents Taker with a restraining order from Vince, or sorry, from Stephanie McMahon
Stephanie,
Helmsley.
yeah.
Yeah, 25-foot restraining order. Um, there's this future scenario where like Kane is chasing Stephanie around and like threatens to chuck her off some stairs. He's just holding her, and
That's,
like
I remember that.
yeah, like
And she's like,
Regal's like
help me.
Regal's like trying to take her down, pleading for it, and he's like, "I'll only let her down if I get a match with Triple H," or
At
whatever.
WrestleMania.
And then Triple H ultimately destroys Undertaker's motorcycle.
Yeah,
Um, so
that's right. The
there's
sledgehammer was in full swing at that time as like an added gimmick for Triple H.
yeah, he was all about that sledgehammer. There's a spot with him with it later, obviously in the match. So yeah, the motorcycle is the tipping point. There's hell to pay. And to do Triple H's theme song is Motorhead, who does whatever you call his theme song, the game or
Yep,
um,
yep.
Motorhead was involved in Evolution's theme song also. Uh,
Evolution is a mystery.
yeah, man, Evolution was great. Uh, and I think he did another iteration of Triple H's song, the "Bow Down to the King."
That's right. I
Um,
forgot about that.
yeah, so at least those three things. He looked old as shit in 2001. I know the dude is still alive, so he's got to be like 80. I don't know.
What is his name? Lenny
I
or
have no
something?
idea. No idea.
Not Kravitz. But yeah, having a live performance like that is phenomenal. I kind of wish, because Limp Bizkit was the theme song, he would have been there to perform Undertaker's, but Motorhead was pretty cool.
Yeah, at one point, Limp Bizkit did do Undertaker's live. I don't know what show it was. It would have been cool to be this one. Um, but yeah, so then yeah, Triple H comes out. Taker comes out with the motorcycle, like you said, Limp Bizkit theme. Um, they start fighting before the match actually starts. They take out the Spanish announce table for a second time. But the
That's
second
right.
time, it wasn't a real table. It was just a folding table they put the monitors on. Um, so it was going to blow over by a gust of wind or whatever. um, yeah, so after that, I just kind of I've been talking a lot here, but before I pass it to you, quick, I just wanted to bring up like the referee's energy in this match, Mike Chioda.
Oh
So
yeah.
that guy, like, until I think like 3 or 4 years ago, he got let go, like during COVID or something. So he was around for years, and like up until then, even like he would get in this guy's like the competitors' faces all the time. Like breaking them up from like a 5 count
Yeah.
on the side of the ring.
That's one of my highlights. When
Yeah,
I was taking notes, I said the ref actually pushed Triple H and got in his face. I'm like, that's uncanny.
yeah. I was just about to say that too, shoving Triple H. Um, and then there's a part where Triple H leaves the ring and grabs the sledgehammer from the timekeeper's area, and Mike Chioda takes the time to grab it out of his grasp.
That's
Um,
right.
but I'll pass it to you for some other spots here. I've been talking quite a bit.
Sure. Oh no, no worries. There's a lot to talk about. It's an exciting match. You know, one thing I noticed about this match, John, is it had modern elements. It felt very modern. When I was watching this match, I was like, you know what? This could have happened last night on Raw. It just seems very modern. Um, The So the ref definitely had a tough job, but he was thick-skinned, like we just mentioned. Undertaker throws some of the best punches in the industry. When I see, especially when he became the more MMA styled fighter he is as the big dog, the dead man, his combination punches and the way he connects with the face, it's very real. And as long as you have somebody like Triple H to sell it, man, those exchanges and those flurries, phenomenal to watch. Some of the best. So that was a big highlight. I thought their outside the ring work was tasteful, especially
Yes,
when they went into the audience. And this is where it gets modern for me. I thought a lot of the stuff they did out in the audience, that's like the template for modern audience work.
for sure. And
Uh,
just to like add something to that quick, they end up out of the ring after Undertaker is like pissed off about a 2 count, and he just takes out Mike Chioda. Like he just
yeah,
lays
yeah,
him out, and he was out for like 10 minutes. Like they were in the crowd
right.
for a long time. Like there's, I'm sure we'll get to it here, but there's like a spot where like they're fighting by like these camera towers and like throwing each other off of it, and like they end up back in the ring,
That's
and
right.
Shioda's still out. Like,
Yeah, he played a vital role in the storytelling, from taking the sledgehammer away, just his gumption to shove Triple H. That they should do that more. I
yeah,
think emphasize the ref as like an actual, not a competitor, but a regulator.
yeah, and I brought this up before in personal conversations, but it it kind of stinks when the referee is a female, just because they have these instances where the ref would get taken out in the past or whatever, and if you see a female referee in there, they're just not gonna do that because they're not gonna
Yeah,
have somebody assault a woman like Rhino did Lita.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
So it's almost 50-50 now, male female refs. So yeah, it just, you automatically know at the beginning of a match if you see a female ref. Unfortunately, they're not getting taken out. But um
Yeah, I had. That's a good point. I'm glad you brought that up because I haven't really. I I've never seen that happen or as often as the males. Hmm.
yeah, and maybe there are scenarios where they get taken out by the female wrestlers, but
Mm-hmm.
I can't recall any at the moment. Um but yeah, just so that I would like to see more of it, but it would have to only be the male ones, obviously. But yeah, so yeah, they end up back in the ring after fighting by the cameras there. Taker gets Triple H in the ring. He sees the sledgehammer and is like very dramatic about lifting it up to blow Triple H. And it takes so long that Triple H delivers a low blow before he could use it.
That's right.
Um,
Yeah, that sledgehammer. Um, I was gonna say too, the motor control, like motor skill control, both these men have in this match. It's great. The choke slam when they were outside on the TV. What'd you call it? The scaffolding, the TV
Tower, yeah,
scaffolding. Yeah, seeing. I know he fell onto a soft bed, but the initial choke slam was just, it was so great to see because I haven't seen Undertaker do that in so long. And to see a tombstone pile driver after pile drivers being far removed from WWE's production, yeah, something vintage about it puts a smile on my face. Again, fine motor control. You can trust somebody like Undertaker to not drop you on your head.
right.
And look at the sledgehammer work. So here's a question for you. Do you think the blood was bladed?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was actually, yeah, I got lost in my discussion, but I was going to bring that up that they for sure bladed. It looked like it to me anyway. Or actually, maybe I'm confusing this with the next match. I know Rock bladed for sure. Um,
Oh yeah, the next one they with Stone Cold for sure.
yeah. So yeah, maybe not in this one. I don't know. I'm having a hard time recalling now.
It's just interesting because I feel like it was alleged that the sledgehammer did it when Triple H was like on top and the sledgehammer does a flip and hits. But
Yeah,
the way the sledgehammer lands doesn't suggest that it would have caused the bleeding because it didn't seem to be the same location.
yeah.
That's why that's why I thought the bleeding was from a blade. But um, yeah, I don't know. Just interesting. Overall, I give this match an A minus.
Okay, I give it a straight A.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
The only reason it didn't get a full A from me, I will say, you know, I don't know. I mean, I could go with an A, but I'm gonna stick with the A minus. The main reason is I felt like they didn't have to spill out into the audience at WrestleMania, and I felt like with the ref being down for so long, it felt a little forced.
yeah,
But otherwise, everything was great.
yeah. That I can see where you're coming from. Just we didn't really say the end of this match here. Taker essentially hits him with a last ride. Um,
Yeah.
was he on the corner? I wrote down. Here's how I wrote it. I said Taker gets him in last ride position in the corner, hits it for the pinfall. So he must have been on the turnbuckles, right? And then Taker kind of, I don't
I
know.
thought for some reason I remember it being like a clean last ride, but I
Okay,
think you might be right. I just get all giddy when I see him after the win get on his motorcycle, go up on the stage and throw up the fist.
sure. Yeah,
It's like,
that's
yeah, it's my childhood.
it's classic image. Absolutely, American
Yeah.
flag. Yeah. Okay, so and then we will talk about our main event here.
Oh boy.
Stone Cold
Hmm.
versus The Rock. This is like generational stuff. Um, the whole video package was a Limp Bizkit music video, essentially. No,
Yeah, it was. It was.
like they showed wrestling clips, obviously, just building this feud, but it was to My Way, and I think it was the duration of the song. Um, I do like how they, line up like certain parts of the music with certain clips. Like they had like the moment where like they're gonna cheers the beers in the ring, and like the Limp Bizkit songs like "And I straight up
Yep.
leave your shit," and like when they're
Yeah.
cheersing, it's like I just love it. I don't know, it's cheesy, but I like it.
No, the synchronicity is a great media package. Um,
This time I'm gonna let it all come out. Just
Did you like put that on your playlist after watching? You're just like, I got to jam to that for the next week.
that's just on my playlist already. I don't know what you're talking about.
Already? Of course. Okay.
That and Roland and Nookie and no. Um but yeah, so they do this video package explaining their feud. There's so much to it. I'm not even going to go over it in that much detail. Just know that these two guys are always like close to fighting or somehow like
Yeah.
they're tied together to perpetuity essentially. Um
Yeah, for sure. And mind you, John, I believe Stone Cold won the Royal Rumble to punch his ticket to face The Rock
okay. Yeah, I forgot about that.
that year. Yeah.
So they both come out to a lot of cheers. You can hear boos for The Rock though too. I think The Rock's technically a heel and Stone Cold's from Texas, so um, but yeah, they really came out of the gate swinging too. Like they end up in the
Oh,
crowd like
geez.
30 seconds in the match or something like that.
For real.
Um, you can see Austin getting tossed back into the area near the announce table. They get back in the ring. Yeah, there's so many spots, man. it's, It's
Well,
exhausting.
I will say one of the very first spots that just got me rocking was seeing Stone Cold hit a Thez press and that smack you hear when he connects in midair
Hmm.
with his body before Rock goes down. That Thez press, dude, no one has ever duplicated or emulated the Stone Cold Thez press.
No.
It's it's so perfect and believable. And besides him stomping a mud hole and walking it dry, the Thez press is one of his combo moves that I just adore to watch. Because no matter who he hits it, he's going to hit it just right. And I love that midair snap you hear when he smacks before the takedown.
Yeah.
Um, and then yeah, Earl Hebner. Talk about great refs.
Hmm.
Earl Hebner is my personal favorite ref. Two reasons. He's called a lot of my favorite matches. And growing up, I feel like if I saw Earl Hebner in the ring, I'm like, oh, here we go. Shit's going down. This is going to be a good match because Earl didn't really, you didn't throw Earl in stuff that wasn't worth your time, I feel.
Yeah.
Uh, so that was a highlight for me.
For
And
sure.
I will say Rock's energy is incredible. Looking back, my God, you see some of it in Jey Uso really trying to emulate that early Rocky Maivia when he fully becomes the face of the company. He definitely is doing a good job, but you're never gonna capture that essence, man. It was lightning in a bottle with Stone Cold and The Rock,
Yeah.
and we talked about Jericho and Regal having a snappy exchange, or at least Jericho being more snappy. I felt like The Rock and Stone Cold were just on top of the mountain. Everything was just flawless. Even when I caught Stone Cold having to fix a knee brace, he
Hmm.
somehow in the middle of fixing it does something to make you think like it's just him being a badass. It's what I'm saying is nothing detracted from the work in the ring.
Totally.
They were all business, and I could think of a few other spots, but since it's such a long match, did you have some early spots that kind of
Um,
stuck out?
just one thing to piggyback off the Earl Hebner thing. Just as much as I like him
Yeah.
and liked seeing him, the one thing that bothered me with this is it was a no DQ match, and he was like yelling at Austin to like break holds the whole time, and like, he was just treating it like they literally made it no DQ, and he had never done one. Like, he just,
He didn't get the memo. It was
yeah,
last minute. He thought it was.
yeah. So
That's a good point. I didn't think about it.
that's my only gripe with that. But let's see. As far as earlier in the match, trying to think. There was one point where like he, I think it was Stone. Yeah, it was Stone Cold. He went and got like the ring bell and then hit the Rock with it. And they like
Yep.
pretty intentionally don't cut to the Rock for like 30 seconds, and then he's bleeding when you see him next. So I'm pretty sure that's when he blades.
Yeah. That's it. And the sharpshooter, that scene. We've seen the sharpshooter in the bleed. I believe commentary even mentioned it. They're like, last time we saw this, Bret Hart was, you know,
Yeah.
making Austin bleed out. Um, Another thing, great kickouts. People don't talk about this enough, especially with recently. Sometimes I see sloppy work on the weekly shows with kickouts, whether it be a shoulder or the ref not counting with good cadence, and it's not believable
Hmm.
because they'll like pause. But anyway, the trifecta with Hebner, Stone Cold, and The Rock. Those kickouts are so good. They're like millisecond kickouts. They're so believable. Like they'll hit a finisher, they'll hit a big move, and then Hebner's boom, boom, and he'll be right there for the three. And Rock will be like, boom, full shoulder extension. And it's just believable stuff. And I want to see more of it nowadays because I feel like the art of the kick out is something people don't talk about that often because they think in their head that it's the responsibility of the ref to kind of enforce the count. But in reality, It takes two. You need that guy to kick out at that moment. And man, the worst thing, especially from some novice talent, is watching in the eyes when they're laying down and they're out of breath and they don't know where they are, and the ref's telling them, "Oh, you got so much time left," and they're going in for the count, and you could see in their eyes mentally they're ticking like, "I gotta kick out in a second." You don't see that with these professionals like The Rock and Stone Cold. It's all so natural. And I just thought I'd add that this, if you want to go and see what kickouts look like, go and watch The Rock versus Stone Cold.
Yeah, and there was plenty of them. There was a lot considering the time. It probably wouldn't be considered that absurd now, but yeah. So I had some about the sharpshooter too. Oh, yeah. So there's a point where Austin teases the stunner, but he ends up getting put in that sharpshooter where he's bleeding, like you're talking about. Um,
Yeah.
Austin gets out of the sharpshooter and gets in his own on the Rock after escaping it. Um, Austin, da, da, da. Oh yeah, he gets into like this sleeper hold. The Rock gets put in position with the sleeper hold where he looks like he's passed out, and they do the arm lift,
Yep. Yep.
to see if they're gonna come up. And of course, like the third one, he almost goes all the way down, and he hulks up like, "Nah, I'm
Yep.
not out from
Yep.
this." Um, let's see. They have a brief back and forth after that, and then Rock hits Austin with the starter of his own.
Right. They traded signature moves.
Yeah. So Hebner goes for the pin. It was like a slow count. I don't know if he was like groggy or what happened. Um, but after that kick out is when Vince McMahon makes his way down to the ring. You see Austin still hitting the Rock with some moves. Gets another near fall in. Rock hits a spine buster to Stone Cold. Goes for the people's elbow, executes, kick out. Uh, or no, it wasn't even a kick out. It was a 2 count, and then Vince McMahon pulled Austin out
Yep.
of, yeah. You see the Rock staring down Vince, and then he starts chasing him around the ring.
Yep.
Lures the action back to the ring and gets met with a rock bottom from Steve Austin at that point.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Uh, Hebner gets knocked to the floor. I forget how he was. Did Vince take him out or?
I don't think Vince did. I think it was just like a collision of sorts.
Okay,
Uh, Also, John, I wanted to say The Rock's spine buster is
electric.
also one of the best spine busters. They talk about like the Randy Orton power slam. The Rock spine buster is the best spine buster I've ever seen.
You put it above Triple H.
Yep, I do.
Okay,
Just because of the energy and the lift in it.
interesting.
Triple H definitely has a really solid one. There's just something special about that spine buster. And when he would lead into the people's elbow later in his career with it, it was
Yeah,
good. It was mwah.
I think you ask
um,
old heads, they'll say Arn Anderson is the best spine buster.
oh yeah,
Yeah, that was his
okay,
deal, but I don't
okay,
I don't know enough.
yeah. Well, it's good to be humble. Um, so my biggest complaint in this whole match is actually Vince at
Okay,
this point. So I feel like Vince had and he still does. He gets in his own way. Like he's a visionary for sure. But it's like he has this mentality of I can't abandon my art until I personally finish it. Like I can't let he doesn't trust people enough to let something unfold. He has to have somehow a creative touch. And I was like, of course Vince is coming out. And this makes this whole match a deal with the devil.
right.
um and it's such a good match and I'm still going to give it a solid A. But at the end, I kept asking myself, was this Vince's character flaw? in his creative genius? Is this it? He always got in his own way. Did he not trust The Rock and Austin could deliver on all fronts? Did he have to be involved? I know there's backstory between all three of them,
Yeah.
and I get those angles. But what that match could have thrived without him. Maybe I'm in the minority there because a lot of people see that little love triangle as a definitive moment in the Attitude Era, especially when you consider the fact that these two were arguably the faces of the company. Do you think this match would have been worse or better without Vince interfering?
I think this individual instance probably better without him. But if I recall correctly, they do so much building off of this after the fact.
They
Um,
do.
that it makes it worthwhile. But I definitely see where you're coming from about him getting in his own way. And it is just a control thing, right? Like he needs to dictate how these things go. And if he doesn't trust it's going to go that way, he's going to insert himself into it. And for better or worse, right?
Right. To me, it would be like building Cody and Roman, and then Triple H comes out and he's like, "This is the Levesque era." It gets in, you know what I mean? It's like, no, let your talent be what they are, talented, and let them put on a show. Let go a little, sit back. You're already in the producer chair, and I don't want to turn this last match into a little tirade against McMahon, but it's like, dude, you already laid a very wonderful, twisted, distorted match earlier. Why are you shuffling down the ring to interfere in this main event?
Right.
Let WrestleMania finish with this without you. But yeah, you're right. They did build afterwards, and it was probably surreal to viewers at the time that Stone Cold was going to basically have a deal with the devil, right?
Yeah. And
But
so basically, how this match ended was there was a series of chair shots, reverses into finishers. I think there was two or three kickouts at the end. Um, Ultimately, Stone Cold gets a chair from Vince, and Rock takes a shot to the head, kicks out at two. But then Rock just further pummels him into submission, essentially on the mat, and then he can't kick out anymore. Gets the 3 count, and Austin is the new champion. The commentary team just can't get over the mortal enemies working together, like you were saying, deal with the devil.
right,
Um, and then they celebrate, and you see the iconic like Vince and Austin cheersing over the Rock in the ring. And then Stone Cold takes out the Rock again as he's like slowly getting up from being defeated. Takes him out with the title belt. Yeah, such a good match. I give it an A. Also, I see where you're coming from with the Vince stuff. I didn't let it bother me when I was watching, um,
yeah.
but
Yeah, it kind of came out when I was looking at my notes, and I was like, you know what? Wow, he gets in his own way creatively, time and time again. He gets in his own way legally. So,
yeah, and he was already so involved with the show. Like he didn't need to be
yeah,
involved in this part too. But
apparently he
yeah,
did.
apparently he did. Yeah. So yeah, that was WrestleMania 17.
Absolutely. Yeah. Heck of a WrestleMania. It's fun to go down memory lane. And for viewers who already have kind of caught our preview and recap shows, we will still be doing that. But this is something fun for us to kind of rediscover the past, maybe bring it into the future for people who haven't seen or grown up with, something like WrestleMania 17. I know personally, I want to go further back. I want to go and watch something you and I haven't seen at all or even clips of
Yeah.
and kind of contrast it with where the industry is today because so here's a question to wrap up the show. What was your favorite match of the
Uh,
whole night? Like, if you had to pick a top three, I know what your answer will probably be, but I kind of want to hear the order, and order will matter.
okay. Yeah, so ultimately, if those keeping track, I gave three A's. It was this main event, it was the Triple H versus Undertaker match, and it was TLC. As far as the order of them, I think I put TLC just a smidge above Rock and Stone Cold, and then Triple H Undertaker third. How about you?
Right, right. Yeah, I will put Rock and Stone Cold number two. Nah, hang on. See, the thing with the Undertaker and Triple H is it felt so modern, and I keep saying that. It just felt like something I would see today, and I want to put it in my number one slot. Ah, man.
Do it.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna put Triple H versus the Undertaker number one. TLC match and then Stone Cold. Because the more I think about Vince, the more I go, screw that. you know?
Yeah. No, yeah. Putting that into, yeah, I didn't think about that at all. So, yeah, I'm just going off of my initial thoughts, I guess. But yeah,
Yeah,
TLC, it's just so iconic.
superb. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But yeah, it's hard. It really is kind of a toss up between those three. Like, there was no question it was those
definitely.
three. Um,
Yeah. And the fourth match for me would be Benoit versus Angle.
I think that's where I fell to. Yeah, A minus on that one. And then um, after that was hardcore for me. So yeah, that'd be five, right?
Yeah,
If we were
yeah.
to do a top
Top
five.
five there.
But that probably won't be a way to go on modern pay per views because they only have five matches.
Right.
But yeah. All right. Well, that was a lot of fun. Thank you, everybody listening. We will be back. Um, we're thinking this Sunday because we're going to change our schedule a little bit. Um, so Sunday we will come out with a preview episode for Crown Jewel. I'm
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
right.
I'm a little excited for it, but not really at the same time. I don't know.
Well, you're going to be excited, damn it. It's going to be great.
More to
Uh,
come.
yeah, more to come. And also, please like, subscribe. And if you have particular moments in wrestling history you want us to discuss, leave a comment. Let us know.
Yeah, definitely. And something we could consider doing in the future is just kind of compiling those comments and see if people have like commonalities that they want us to watch, or if there's like some that a lot of people seem interested in, and there's like another one on like a similar playing field. Maybe we could put up like a poll or something like that and be like, what do you guys want us to listen to? Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, good stuff. We will see you Sunday. Do you have any parting words?
No, I just want everybody to do it their way, but not like Frank Sinatra style, Limp Bizkit style.